Hey everybody, here's our next little video in our Foundation of Government series. We're looking at federalism. So in your notes, we're going to skip past the three branches part. That'll be a different video for you guys, I promise, okay? And look at federalism. So federalism is a little big idea. The idea of dividing and sharing power between federal and state governments. We're going to look at how this whole thing works as we do it. So grab your notes, grab your pen, and let's do this thing. All right, so let me bring my notes up here for you guys to take a peek at. And what federalism is. So as I said before, it's the question of sharing powers. People always ask me, well, what is it, a state or a federal law, right? Well, that's what federalism decides. It is how we divide power between state, local, federal governments. Who gets to deal with what is the question. Who deals with big things, who deals with medium things, who deals with little things, okay? And so the idea here is that, why do we do this? Well, one, a government with a lot of power poses a threat. So a state government is a lot closer to regular people than a federal government. And so that way it kind of keeps, things pretty close to home, right? Governments are restrained and we divide government to prevent the abuse of that power. So instead of giving all power to the federal government in D.C., we gave a bunch of them, some to the states, and even some to local groups as well. So it's kind of like this, right? Under the Articles of Confederation, that one that bombed out, the states had a lot more power than the federal government. So we have 13 states, more power than the federal government. Things weren't working so hot. Let's balance this out, okay? Federalism helps balance the power of the states and the power of the federal government. Stuff gets done, the country runs okay, states are happy, and things are all taken care of. So we have basically a dual system of government. So there's two basic levels, our federal level, our state level, and we'll talk about local later on. Each has their own authority. Each has their own thing operating over people at the same time. So you, in fact, depending on what county you live in, might be following the rules of multiple counties and multiple things at a different time. You may be following national laws, Wisconsin state laws, the county laws you live in, whether it be Sauk, Dane, Columbia County. When you're in school, it might be the village ordinances of Sauk and Prairie, which might be different, by the way. They are different, by the way. As you cross one street, the rules can change from Sauk City to Prairie to Sac. You may have local laws within the schools, and of course, your own classroom rules you got to follow. These are an example of federalism that as you get down to different levels, each level kind of takes care of a different authority and has things for you to follow. Most stuff we follow on a daily basis is more state in a way. Think of it as like a layer cake, okay? We're doing this layer cake first here. Each government has a layer, okay? Federalism is the frosting that separates it out. We have our national layer up on top, big things we deal with, right? National emergencies, all that kind of stuff, national deals. We have middle layer, state stuff, roads, schools, all those kind of things. And local stuff, stop signs in schools and how many dogs you can have, if you can have chickens or not, all that kind of stuff are put in there. And that's the idea of kind of like deciding where that stuff goes. Notice we have marble cake over here. This idea changes a little bit. We'll get to that in a second, okay? So our idea of our federal system here divides it up. So we have delegated powers go to the federal government, reserve powers for the state governments, and powers that both get to have. So the powers for that national government are in Article 1, Section 8, which kind of says that essentially that's what the government can do, okay? And that's what their big deal is. So the idea here is that those are the things Article 1, Section 8 listing down. We also have implied powers, okay? So here we go, Section 8, 27 things, the printing, the money stuff, all that kind of deal, okay? A big one, this one is regular interstate commerce. Anything that crosses the state line is federally regulated, which some people don't like. We have our implied powers. So this is going to be like the things that we do, but we don't say we do. This is where that necessary and proper or elastic clause comes in. So think about it. We got to do other things to make stuff happen. If we got to raise an army, well, we got to have a draft, right? Potentially to bring people in. We have to build military bases. We have to buy tanks, that kind of stuff, okay? If we want to collect taxes, we might need a national bank or an IRS, that kind of thing. We need to punish people who don't pay their taxes. So all these kind of things are not written down per se, but they're done to do the other jobs. And some things are a little bit of a stretch, but that's a whole other story. We also have other powers that are powers that are our inherent powers. It's basically because we're a government, we can do it. Things like immigration, all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, like I said, our implied powers are Article 1, Section 8. That necessary and proper clause brings that implied powers in, and it's elastic because it stretches that power until that stretching stops and the elastic breaks. Again, our inherent powers, all about things we do because we're a country, right? We got to be able to do that kind of stuff. So we recognize other countries, all of those kind of things, okay? Now, people think, oh my gosh, the federal government has so much power. This is what it looked like. We have a big, powerful Uncle Sam, and little states can't do a gosh darn thing. Not so true, okay? There's still a lot of power reserved to those state governments. So again, we go. Our national stuff here, right, that we have, our national powers, delegated powers, war, all that kind of stuff are in there. Some powers are shared, which in a second. The states have the reserve powers. That is everything else that is not federal goes to the states. And yeah, sometimes they do share them, okay? They may share some powers because they have basically the same thing, just at different levels, okay? So let's take a look at this. States have the reserve powers with the 10th Amendment. Anything not in the Constitution goes to the states, okay? And that is so they can still do their own kind of stuff. So what kind of things can they do? Well, honestly, it's just about anything that's not in the Constitution. So what age you get married? If people can buy or sell porn in that state or not. Gambling, teacher's license, medical license, lawyer license, a lot of licenses, okay? Drinking age, public schools, all those kind of things. Stuff that is, again, not in the Constitution. That means that every state might have some different rules. Some states you can drive at 14. Some states you get married at 16. All that kind of thing. If you want to become a doctor, lawyer, anything that has a certification is done by state. I cannot go work as a teacher or EMT in Minnesota or Illinois unless I get certified in that state. And so those are some of the state things that are taken care of. So a good question about this. Well, drinking age is 21 everywhere, right? Well, yes and no, okay? One of the ways that the government can encourage things to change is through what we call our marble cake federalism. We call this kind of like a combined federalism, where the federal government can still encourage states to do certain things by offering or taking away money. So what happened with this case in the 80s, there were a lot of drunk driving accidents. A group named MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, came out and said, hey, we have teenagers stop driving drunk. It's not good. Federal government, you change this law. They're like, hold up, we can't change it. Instead, they said, I got a plan. All right, states, if your drinking age is not 21, we're taking away your highway funding. And so because of that, then, they control the purse, they control the money. It kind of was the idea then that, every state went to being 21. Now, if a state wanted to be 18 instead, they could. They just lose that highway funding. And so, like I said, this kind of marble cake federalism now where everything gets mixed up. The federal government, instead of being broken apart and having that line of federalism frosting in there, we're now kind of more swirled together, and it's all kind of a little bit together, swirled together and influenced because of the money that's in there. So the federal government basically gets up in the state's business by saying, hey, we will pay you or take money away if you do or don't do this kind of thing. We see this a lot here in school. We'll talk about that in class. By the things you do like testing, rules in school, how our school is built, all that kind of stuff is based around parts of this. So things that states cannot do, well, they can't make their own money. I really want the skying to be a thing, though. They can't make alliances with other countries. They can't tax federal government. And basically, they can't take away your life, liberty, property without good cause. And so there's some things that states cannot do. Things that overlap are like things they can both do at different levels at the same time. There's Wisconsin taxes, state taxes. Both states and the federal government can borrow money. They can make their own courts. They can have crimes. They have a police force. All that kind of stuff they can do, okay? And that's kind of where that whole part comes in. If they conflict, we have to go to Article 6 of our Constitution, the Supremacy Clause. Basically, if two laws disagree, you gotta follow the federal one, unless government chooses not to enforce it. A great example here is marijuana legislation. A bunch of states have legalized weed in the country, but it's still federally illegal. So if they wanted to, if the government wanted to, the DOJ go in, or the DEA and the DOJ go in, bust up every legal pot shop in the country. They won't, though, because the government said, we're not going to worry about it right now. All right? And so really, acts of Congress, number 1, treaties, number 2, state laws, number 3, in that order, how they're supposed to be followed if the government chooses to enforce them. Again, here's our last little chart we have here. Remember, these are the things that each can do. Our delegated powers, know that word, right? Go to the federal government. They can do the things listed in the Constitution. The reserve powers to our states. They're reserved for the states. Anything not in the Constitution goes to them, and a few things they can both do. There we go, guys. We're all set. Thank you for your time today. I wish you all the best. Have yourself a great day, and thank you for your attention. I'll see you all in class.